So, the 2025 NFL Draft Scouting Combine is officially underway, and now we're at the stage where a lot of inside information is starting to come out. Coaches and general managers are sharing updates. Las Vegas Raiders general manager John Spytek and head coach Pete Carroll, who provided significant insight into the team's approach to building their roster this year. This is a critical part of the offseason, and Spytek's comments are worth diving into. I'll touch on Mel Kiper's mock draft 2.0, which is shaking up how people view some of the prospects. This mock draft might influence how teams think heading into the draft. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. First up, let's dive into what John Spytek had to say. One of the biggest takeaways from his press conference was that every avenue for acquiring a quarterback is on the table, whether it's through free agency, a trade, or the draft. The Raiders are leaving no stone unturned to avoid last season's quarterback situation, making sure they put the best possible player under center. Spytek mentioned both Cam Ward and Will Howard in his response, which is worth noting. While it might not mean much, it could suggest that the Raiders see Howard as a top option. Of course, there's also the Chip Kelly connection. Howard played under Kelly at Ohio State and won a national championship. That might be why Howard's name came up first. It's too early to determine how teams rank these quarterbacks, but one thing is clear. The Raiders are evaluating all options. Spytek also discussed veteran quarterbacks, stating that they will explore every avenue, including free agency and in-house competition. When asked about Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, he didn't sound too committed to either, implying that the Raiders will likely add competition in the quarterback room. It sounds like Minshew could be a post-June 1st cut, while O'Connell's future depends on how the team approaches the quarterback position. If they acquire a veteran like Matthew Stafford, O'Connell could stick around as a backup. But if they draft a quarterback early, his roster spot becomes less certain. Spytek also spoke highly of Chip Kelly, emphasizing the importance of having a strong offensive play caller to pair with a quarterback. The Raiders appear to be fully invested in Kelly as their play caller, making it crucial to find a QB who fits his system. Given Kelly's history with Will Howard, that could be something to watch. Another key point Spytek made was about the depth of this year's running back class. He acknowledged the importance of the ground game and suggested that the team sees significant value in this position for the draft. Given the organization's emphasis on running the ball, there's a strong chance they'll draft a running back. The real question is whether they'll also bring one in through free agency or opt to load up in the draft. The Raiders aren't giving up on Sincere McCormick or Zamir White, but they clearly want competition. Adding another running back or multiple backs is a priority. Depending on how things unfold, there's a strong chance they trade back from the 6th pick and still land a top-tier running back while collecting additional picks. Another interesting note was about the importance of keeping young players. Spytek also addressed the Raiders' free agents, acknowledging that they have a general plan but are still working through detail. The Raiders recently signed Isaiah Pola-Mao to a 2-year deal worth $8.45 million, which was a bit more than expected. However, Spytek and defensive coordinator Patrick Graham view him as a critical piece of the defense, particularly given Graham's preference for a versatile safety. So the Raiders are expected to make a strong push to retain their key free agents, especially on defense. The previous regime was looking at a short-term deal for Malcolm Kunsey, but now there's an openness to a longer commitment. Max Crosby's extension is already in the budget, and they plan to make offers for Trevin Moehrig and Adam Butler. However, the challenge comes with Robert Spillane. The market for him is heating up, and some teams may be willing to overpay. He could command a 3-year, $30 million deal with a sweet spot around $8 to $10 million per year. The Raiders want him back, and he wants to stay, but finances will play a big role in how this unfolds. Spytek also made it clear that the Raiders will prioritize drafting the best available players rather than strictly drafting for need. He highlighted past mistakes, mentioning names like Damon Arnett, Clelin Ferrell, and Alex Leatherwood, players selected based on need who didn't pan out. Instead, the Raiders aim to secure top talent regardless of positional gaps, similar to how they landed Brock Bowers and Jackson Powers-Johnson last year. Therefore, there are 2 names to watch, Bobby Wagner and DK Metcalf. Neither would be a shock if they ended up in Las Vegas. The team is also evaluating trade options for Matthew Stafford. The Rams, of course, are asking for a first-round pick, but the more salary the Raiders are willing to absorb, the lower the draft compensation becomes. This situation is fluid, and while a move isn't guaranteed, it's something to keep an eye on. As for Max Crosby, Spytek reaffirmed that he expects Crosby to remain with the team long-term. He avoided specifics but emphasized how Crosby embodies everything they want in a player. It's hard to imagine the Raiders talking about building a winning culture and then letting a cornerstone like Crosby go away. Another noteworthy comment was that Spytek occasionally speaks with Tom Brady and values his insight. While Brady's involvement remains somewhat limited, Spytek made it clear that he's open to input from one of the game's all-time greats. Now, let's shift to Pete Carroll's press conference. While not as eventful as Spytek's, it still provided some valuable insights. The biggest takeaway was the Raiders want to win immediately. Carroll acknowledged that building a system takes time, but emphasized that the goal is to compete right away. That suggests the Raiders will be aggressive this offseason. Carroll also expressed admiration for Ohio State's ability to produce NFL-ready talent. It's something to keep in mind, especially given the team's recent coaching addition. Don't be surprised if the Raiders target several Ohio State players in the draft. Another important point was the alignment between Carroll, Spytek, and Brady. Carroll stated that all three speak the same language, which is crucial for organizational cohesion. In contrast to past regimes that struggled with internal alignment, this front office appears unified in its vision. Carroll revealed that he speaks with Brady daily, while Spytek talks to him occasionally. While it's unclear how much influence Brady truly has, his presence remains a factor in the decision-making process. When discussing team building, Carroll emphasized the importance of the running game. He spoke about the need to create a strong supporting cast around the quarterback, having a solid offensive line, tight ends, receivers, and, most importantly, a reliable ground attack. His comments suggest that while the Raiders will be looking at quarterbacks, they'll also prioritize building a complete team. Carroll also defended the decision to hire college coaches, noting that their deep understanding of college players is invaluable for scouting and drafting. This philosophy played a role in Seattle's legendary 2012 draft class, and it's something he hopes to replicate in Las Vegas. When asked about veteran free agents, Carroll remained tight-lipped, but acknowledged that he maintains close relationships with players like Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner. He also dodged questions about Matthew Stafford, refusing to comment on players from other teams, a smart move to avoid tampering concerns. Finally, Carroll made it clear that quarterback competition will be a focal point. He believes in letting players battle for starting roles, similar to how Russell Wilson won the job in Seattle as a rookie. While Aiden O'Connell's chances of starting seem slim, any new quarterback the Raiders bring in will have to earn the job. All right, now let's talk about John Spytek's comments about running backs and Mel Kiper's second mock draft of the season. He actually has the Raiders selecting a running back at pick number 6. Specifically, Kiper projects them to take Ashton Jeanty. Spytek made it clear that he doesn't prioritize speed in a running back. He's more concerned with players who can make defenders miss. That reminds of when he spoke about Bucky Irving from Oregon. The Buccaneers drafted Irving in the 4th round, and Spytek noted that while he's not the biggest guy, he has the ability to make defenders miss. Irving even told Spytek himself that the first defender trying to tackle him is going to fail. He's just that elusive. Spytek puts it right. Speed is nice, but it's not the most important trait for a running back. Sure, having a guy who can break away and take it to the house is great, but that's not the only thing that matters. Spytek essentially said that if a back can make defenders miss and break tackles, he'd be fine drafting someone who runs a 4.5 or 4.6 in the 40-yard dash. Saquon Barkley is a rare talent, and while Bijan Robinson is close, Ashton Jeanty might be in that same category. But outside of those guys, there aren't many running backs with that level of explosiveness, that elite combination of quickness, agility, and acceleration. But Spytek's point is that the Raiders don't need a Saquon Barkley. They just need a back who can create yards efficiently. The fact that Kiper has them taking a running back is interesting, especially with Shedeur Sanders still on the board. Kiper has Sanders going at number 7 to the Jets, but if the Raiders are in need of a quarterback, why not take him at 6? Of course, free agency is still ahead. The Raiders might target someone like Sam Darnold, or even go after Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers. But regardless, one cannot agree with taking a running back that high. It's not Ashton Jeanty doesn't qualify that caliber. He's a fantastic player and a potential game changer. But for the Raiders, the value just isn't there. A top-tier tackle, defensive end, or cornerback would make a much bigger impact. Yes, Saquon Barkley had a great year with the Eagles, but he was behind an elite offensive line. If he had been on the Raiders last season, he wouldn't have had the same success. That's the issue with drafting a running back early. It's so dependent on the offensive line. One can find quality running backs in the 2nd round without using a top 10 pick. Overall, the biggest takeaways from both press conferences are clear. The Raiders are exploring all quarterback options. They want to build a complete team around the QB, and there's strong cohesion between Carroll and Spytek. If nothing else, these two appear more prepared and well-aligned than past regimes, which should give fans some optimism heading into the offseason.